Gridiron Grinder! Hut hut hike!
All right, we're rolling. It's Wednesday night, Gridiron Grinder time. I'm Ryan. With me, as always, is my buddy James. We're just a couple of dudes hanging out, talking about what's going on in the NFL each week. We got the holiday coming up here. We decided to get to the show early. Tonight's episode 126. We're going to be kicking it off with Name That Stadium. We're going to cover the news from this past week, kind of a short week for us. Then we're going to jump into our Week 16 power rankings and game picks. And last but not least, we'll close it off with question of the week. And so, with all that being said, how's it going tonight, James?
It's going good. It's an interesting week this week, and then I haven't been off since Friday, or I haven't worked since last Thursday, so I don't know what to do, but fuck to do with myself during the week right now.
Well, it's good that we're doing the show tonight, then. Yeah, like you're saying. I mean, we got to give you some shit to do, buddy.
Yeah, no shit.
You should be well prepared for this episode.
Yeah, you know, when you,
Maybe not. Idle hands.
when you have babies that learn how to walk on you randomly, it's that takes up some time.
Yeah, exciting and also anxious, I'm sure, at the same time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's a bit scary,
Have
but it's cool.
have to do a lot more baby proofing.
Yep, yeah. You had all this time, but now it's getting real.
See, the good thing is she likes cleaning up. So if we accidentally left something on the floor, she'll just walk over, pick it up, and put it somewhere, so it's no longer on the floor.
As long as she doesn't put it in her mouth, right?
Exactly.
Just don't leave anything small laying around. We had that with our son. It was like, oh my gosh, anything that could be swallowed, you just got to be careful because you never know.
Yeah.
Sometimes they think anything's food. So,
Oh,
all
I
right.
know
Well, hey,
that.
man. So, yeah. So for tonight, let's just we'll let everybody know, like some housekeeping items we try to do a little bit every week here. We bookmark the show. It's kind of lengthy. If you've been with us before, you know that. If you're new, you can skip ahead. You don't have to stay for the whole hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it's going to end up being. But if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. We do this every week, feeding you guys some awesome, riveting, NFL related content, right, James?
Very riveting.
You're supposed to say, yeah, absolutely. No?
That's what I just said. Did you not hear it?
Okay. All right. You'll get there. We'll
Oh,
talk about the Lions and that'll get you all fired up.
it obviously didn't come through. So I'll work on that.
All right. Well, hey, man, why don't you take the ball and run with it and do Name That Stadium for us?
All right. So this is the part of the show where I like to travel around. Generally during the season, it's a home game, or not a home game, a stadium that's hosting a game that week, and I try to tie it into something relevant to that week, or just and try to move it around so I don't repeat during the season. If you get that, if you guess it, you guess right, or you just put a guess out there. We'll probably give you a shout out anyways, but you'll get the extra special one if you guess it right and they're the first one. And so last week I was at Washington. I wanted so bad to be in New York for the Lions game. But as I was loading it up, I looked and I said, "Oh shit, I've already been there this season." So I had to flip it up. So I looked at the other games and I thought probably the best game of the week, not maybe not records wise, but the most compelling game was the Washington and the Giants game
Sure.
because they just played a couple weeks ago. It ended up in a tie, and heck, this past week the tie was in play
Mm-hmm.
in the game until they fucked up, and that was a pass interference call. Oh my fucking lord! I think I sent you the picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
The guy was wrapped around him like
Yeah.
this, and the
He
ball was in the
draped him.
air.
Yep.
You're not calling pass interference on that? What the fuck?
Yeah. There's been a lot of talk about the penalties or lack thereof this year because you have the roughing the passer stuff, you have the pass interference stuff, and they're really affecting the game outcomes this year. And it's
Yeah.
and historically you get them here and there where they do questionably affect the outcome. But it seems like we're getting it every week this season, and it just is. It's like maddening, man. And hey, listen, I don't want to dog the Lions because I'm happy as heck that they won, but they had a pass interference that didn't get called that probably should have, and so I'm like, but historically speaking, it's usually the stuff that goes against the Lions, and so I don't know. Maybe this was just our time to get one in our favor. I don't know. So
Yeah, and you brought up roughing the passer, and I heard at the owners meeting, so it must have been this past week or something. They had the owners meeting because I was reading more this week, this last couple days about Ursay, and maybe it was last week, and I forgot about it. But I had read an article that they were looking at ejections for roughing the passer penalties.
oh my gosh. Some of them are so weak.
Yeah, so it's like where do you draw the line on a roughing the passer penalty and like if it's not but but if they do that and they tie it to an ejection, maybe there'll be like the college system with targeting.
Okay.
So so in the college system with the targeting, the penalty's called on the field and the penalty stands, whether the 15-yard penalty portion of it stands,
Sure.
but no, it doesn't stand. It actually doesn't. The penalty is subject to review. So it's automatically reviewed. If they call it targeting, it's automatically reviewed and it has to be confirmed by replay that it is a targeting penalty before the penalty can be not, assessed and the player is ejected. So maybe that might if they're tying it to ejections, maybe there will be some sort of
A
review
review
system
too.
for it
Yeah.
to confirm it. And obviously, they're not looking at like it in college, the college system. It has to be quote clear and obvious that
Yeah.
it's a bad call.
Yeah. I would just say I would hope that there's like a panel that gets to decide
Yeah.
because, if it's one guy, it's going to be his opinion. If you've got three or five, where you've got some tiebreaker, you know, you get, I think, a better view of it because some guys
Hmm.
are gonna be like, "Oh, come on, look at him, man. He, you know, tried pulling off, or he didn't like drive him into the ground. Obviously this or that or whatever. I don't know, or hey, he tackled him lower, and so he didn't see the ball got out or whatever. I don't know. It just they got to do something though.
Yeah, but the problem, like if they go over to that college system, then it subjects every play to like the college system. The review can call the personal foul, so
Okay.
they could unreview. It's some bullshit that could be another challengeable play where you challenge it and say, oh, there was roughing the passer on that play, and then like I don't know. It's hard to say what the right thing is to do. Like, but I mean, roughing the passer, they have to lay off of. I mean,
Yeah.
there's another example. There's a million penalties. It's like I hear all the time. Holding could be called on every play in the NFL,
Oh yeah, dude. Oh yeah.
and so you're not going to have 100% of the penalties called, but in particular in the Washington game, Washington scored a touchdown and they called a penalty for illegal formation that had nothing to do with the play because I forget
Oh
who it
yeah, the
was.
wide
It
receiver was not
was it
lined up on the
McLaurin?
line.
Wasn't lined up on the line, but you could see him gesturing to the official like
Yep.
I'm on the line, I'm on the line, and the official didn't tell him to move forward, and then they called that play that penalty, which didn't affect the play whatsoever, and then but they don't call a clear and obvious pass interference.
Yeah. Yeah, that was, man, that was another one that was pretty weak. And it's like, I guess I get it. You gotta have the proper formation, but yeah, the receiver did try to
Hmm.
like, let the ref know, hey, I'm trying to be on the line. And like there is sort of like that unspoken, that is normal. And the ref will tell him, oh no, you gotta move up another foot or whatever. And
Yeah.
it didn't happen there and they got dinged for it. But the guy, he did like the part that is like the norm for him. And yeah, it just sucks, man.
Yeah, so it's just it just annoyed me. I was kind of rooting for the tie because I jokingly said, "Well, these two teams can't tie again, can they?"
Yeah,
Uh,
it'd be nuts.
But
Yeah.
that'd been fucking crazy. But I mean, the Giants won. I mean, who really cares? All I care about is the Lions are a half game out of the fucking playoffs right now, as it
Yeah.
stands. A
Fucking
half a
squeeze
fucking
their
game.
way in, man.
S-
Bully their way in.
Yeah, and the thing of it is right now how the standings are. If the playoffs were if they were in the playoffs right now, the number two team is Minnesota,
Oh, yeah.
who
So
they
you're
just
saying,
beat.
yep, they'd get them. Minnesota would be a little nervous going into that one.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just it's fun to think of. I mean,
Well, yeah,
it's
man can dream, right?
yeah, exactly. Man can dream, especially if it ends up being Minnesota as their team. Oh shit, that's gonna be a fun week.
Oh, it'd be wild. I don't know. We'd have to fly to Minnesota, man.
Yeah, probably.
We'll have to think about it. But all right, what do you say we move on to our recap of the past week?
All right, sounds good.
All right. I love the tangents though. But yeah, so let's start with our week 15 surprises. We've been doing that every week here. And really, the only one I had, James, was the Minnesota comeback against the Colts,
Hmm.
which was pretty wild, down 33 points. They came back, they got the win. That is the NFL record for the biggest comeback. And a lot of people this week have been dogging Matt Ryan for being a part of another one of these bad, you have this huge lead and then you lose kind of games. But I liked it. I heard it on the radio today, and a guy was defending him, saying, "What the fuck? Matt Ryan doesn't play defense.
Hmm.
He scored 33 points. You can't put any of that on him." And
Yeah.
then, of course, another guy came out and was like, "Oh yeah, but they didn't have, any first downs in the second half or whatever, and all they had to do was get a field goal in the second half, and they would have won or whatever." But
But they did
it's a
get a
good
field
point,
goal in the
man.
second half. They did get a field goal in
Well,
the second half because it was 33 to nothing at
yeah.
halftime,
Well, yeah,
and the
maybe
final
one
score
more
was
field
39
goal
to
or whatever.
36.
Yeah, but either way, it's uh, and now Matt Ryan's benched for this week coming up. Nick Foles is going to get the start, and that whatever. I don't, it is what it is. But I do agree to some sense that you can't be putting it on Matt Ryan when he gets 33 freaking points on the
Hmm.
board.
Yeah. Well, the irony of all ironies about Minnesota now having the record for biggest comeback is the previous largest comeback in NFL history was 32 points, and it was by a Frank Reich coached team.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you talking about Philly when he was the quarterbacks coach?
No, it was Buffalo that did it. And Frank Reich was the coach of Buffalo at the time. Yeah,
What? Huh?
I'll look it up, but that's I'll look it up again. But I did look it up, and it
Okay,
was a Frank Reich coached Buffalo team.
gotcha.
So
I
the
yeah, I
irony
just
is, he used to, he was the ex-coach of the Colts. Yep, it was 32. Uh, the Bills came back 32 points in 1992, 93. Wow, that was a playoff game.
ooh, yeah,
January
that's a while
3rd,
ago, man.
January 3rd, 1993.
Okay.
And so, anyways, the it was Marv Levy that was the coach, and Frank Reich was on the staff. He was like the offensive coordinator.
Okay.
I want to say,
Well, that
hold
would
on.
make more sense to me. I just was like, he was the head coach for the Bills. What? I don't remember any of that.
No, no, he was on the staff for the not for the Bills. He was on the staff for um sorry, he was a he was the quarterback, a quarterback for the Bills.
See, now that would make even
He
more
was the
sense when you're
quarterback.
talking 30 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
It's all good, man.
He was the quarterback that brought the Bills back from a
Okay.
32-point deficit.
Gotcha.
He yeah, okay, there we go.
Now it's all making sense.
Yeah, he was the quarterback for the Bills that brought them back. I knew there was some tie to Frank Wright, and I couldn't remember it because I saw it earlier a couple days, like I saw it over the weekend. But yeah,
Sure.
he was the quarterback for the Bills that brought them back from a 32-point deficit. They were down um, 38 to 35 to 3, and they ended up winning the game in overtime 41 to 38.
Gotcha. It's a heck of a comeback.
Yeah. But that comeback like happened all in the third quarter. Like they scored 28 of the points in the third quarter, and then they scored late in the
Some
fourth.
good halftime adjustments.
Yeah, which I mean that's similar to what happened in the
Yeah, the Brady Matt Ryan matchup. Yep.
well, yeah, that one too. But in the Colts game this past weekend,
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, yeah.
it was every except for the majority of the points were in the fourth.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I didn't really have any other big surprises from this past week, man. I mean, there were games that didn't go the way I thought they would, but they didn't like blow my mind. Was there any that stuck out for you?
Um, kind of. Well, I didn't see it. Like I saw the highlights of it, and it's fucking ridiculous. The New England Raiders game, like the ending of that
With
game.
the way it ended? Yeah, the
Yeah.
final play, dude. So like basically, I'm guessing it's because Mac Jones maybe didn't have the arm strength to throw a Hail Mary. They tried doing this weird, let's keep tossing it back to try to
Uh
keep the
huh.
ball alive kind of thing. And it gets off to the sideline with Jacoby Myers, I believe. And, they're getting ready to tackle the dude. And he just like whips it backwards, like to the center of the field. And it just like straight to frickin' Chandler Jones. Like it was just such a horrible, like, why would you even think about doing that kind of situation? It's like you're tied up, you know, you don't have a clear path to like make anything happen. Just go
Hmm.
out of bounds or go down and go to overtime. No, instead he throws it to Chandler Jones, who just like basically like brushes off a guy and has an easy like run into the end zone to win the game. I mean, yeah, so the end of that kind of blew my mind, but I wasn't like shocked that the Raiders got the win just because I have no faith in the Patriots, and every time I go one way or the other against the Raiders, they fricking zig when I zag. So, you
Hmm.
know,
Yeah, and then kind of like the resiliency of the Lions. Yeah, I know they almost gave up the game tying field goal, and they kind of, but just to be able to like, okay, so they were pretty much, you know, up up from what I saw almost the entire game, not the entire game. They were playing better than the Jets almost the entire game. They had like, the offense kind of stumbled a little bit at the beginning, but then to like stick with it and be able to pull the game out for the
yeah,
Lions, that resiliency is like that was a
on the
game
road too.
on the road that the Lions historically lose.
Yep, there's some of that
And
Dan Campbell grit, man.
mhm. So I that kind of surprised me this week a little bit. Just
Okay,
how they didn't give it up because historically that's a game they would lose.
yeah, pleasantly surprised. I got
Yeah.
you. Well, let's talk some injuries then for this past week. James, there were a lot of guys that got put on IR, which is kind of normal for this time of
Hmm.
year because you only have a couple weeks left. And, if you're not in the playoffs, a lot of teams, they'll like to drop a guy to IR, give him a chance to pull up a guy from the practice squad, maybe see what he's got in these final couple weeks of the season. And then some guys, if they're in the playoffs, they might just say, listen, I'm just going to shut this guy down for a few weeks. And then that way, when playoffs come, he'll be healthy, rested, ready to roll. But Jonathan Taylor, one of the guys, he was like the big name guy. Ankle injury, IR. I don't think it matters. The Colts, they're struggling obviously at this point in the season. And a lot of the other guys were not like big name guys. Jonathan Taylor was the one that stuck out for me. But in other injuries, non-IR related, it looks like Ryan Tannehill I saw might not play this weekend. I didn't get the details there, but it looks like they signed a quarterback because he may not be ready to go. In which case it'd be Malik Willis and whoever they just signed. And then I saw Arizona ruled out Colt McCoy. He's got a concussion. Looks like Trace Sorley is going to get the start this week for Arizona. And then in positive injury news, Dallas Goedert is going to be back for the Philadelphia Eagles. He's coming off of IR, which is good. Hopefully stays healthy, ready for their playoff run. And I see you looking at something there, man.
Well, no, I was just like
trying to find the Tannehill info.
No, that too. But I was thinking about that. But like then I looked up at the just scanning the news, and I was like, that's a weird fucking name. Coach for the Atlanta Falcons, Dean Pees.
Oh yeah.
Pees. I was like, what the fuck? Apparently he's fine after he was collided with somebody in pregame.
Yeah,
I didn't see that, so.
Yeah, and I think he flew home with the team, so that was good. But yeah, it sounds like he got whacked pretty good by a player pregame.
Oh. He was talking to Christina Pink. He was talking with the sideline reporter, and he didn't see Rashid Shaheed. Apparently, Rashid Shaheed ran into him and just thwapped him pretty hard and knocked him unconscious.
Oh, all these guys, man, just getting wrecked with the head injuries.
Yeah. So, but apparently he has some medication that he takes that there could have been like a serious issue there.
Okay.
So it just caught my attention. The name caught my attention because I think it's the 12-year-old boy in me laughs at the name Peas.
Peas.
Yeah.
Peas.
Yeah, exactly.
My kids like to do the, hey, Dad, spell iCup. And I'm like, okay, I know that one. ICUP. But hey, I still laugh at it. So,
yeah.
All right, man. So other news from this past week, I'll just start with the sad stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Legendary Steelers running back, Franco Harris, immaculate reception, passed away at 72.
And
Rest in peace.
You know what Friday
Amazing
is?
football player. What's that?
You know what Friday is?
Is that the anniversary of the Immaculate Reception?
This coming Friday is the 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Reception.
Yeah, man, that was a wild play.
That's why the NFL scheduled the Raiders and Pittsburgh this week.
Gotcha.
Because of the 50th anniversary of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty sweet, man. Pretty sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, James, I just got a little bit on Sammy Watkins. Released by the Packers. Why not? Those rookie wide receivers are starting to come into their own. The Ravens claimed him pretty much immediately. He's going to fill the void, looks like, for Devin Duvernay, who was placed on IR recently. Watkins obviously has got some familiarity with Baltimore, having been there, I think, just last year. So
yeah, I think it was last year.
Yeah. So that'll be all right for them, fill in that depth. and he wasn't really doing much for Green Bay, so that's all right. Shake it up. That's all I got for the news, man. What else is hanging out there on this short week that I missed?
Um, and the only thing I had, it feels like we haven't talked about this guy in a while because he kind of drifted off into oblivion after his uh, unceremonious FU to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year. But apparently,
Okay,
prosecutors dropped the case against Antonio Brown that stemmed from um, some altercation outside his home in Tampa.
gotcha.
Uh, I, I I don't know. It's just like at least it's somewhat good news that police or
Man,
prosecutors dropped the case against him. But man, like how far has he fallen off?
so James, I don't think I told you this, but I saw very briefly, didn't watch the whole video, but a guy put a video on YouTube suggesting that if you look back at Antonio Brown before and after he had that nasty hit by Vontaze Burfict,
Hmm.
this guy is saying that he believes Antonio Brown has like some permanent brain damage from that has altered his personality from that point on. And I'm gonna have to go back and find that video and watch it because obviously, I was a huge Antonio Brown fan, having come
Yeah.
from Central Michigan. Um, and that would be wild if this guy could actually point to that and maybe put together enough evidence to support that. That would have to be something that the league, you would think, would want to look into because it ties into all of this research on the brain injury stuff.
Hmm. And I remember that playoff game hit. That was a cheap ass fucking hit.
Yeah.
That was a cheap hit.
Yes, man, I don't know, dude. That's yeah, it piqued my interest. I'm glad that you brought that up because I'm gonna have to like make a note and go digging for that. So,
Yeah, I'm gonna make a note too. I have some time on my hands. I could go dig it for it too, because that I'd be interested to see that because that makes a lot of sense. Like
yeah.
looking back at when a lot of this shit started to happen, and seem it does seem to coincide.
Yeah, it was like, he had some seasons where he was getting a little bit like prima donna-ish because he was so good, but he didn't like do stupid shit like that. And then it was like all of a
Hmm.
sudden, man, he just like crumbled fast. It was like one thing after another until he was out of the frickin' league, man.
Hmm.
All right. Well, I don't want to keep bashing him because I liked him. Sometimes ignorance is bliss. I still want to think he's a good guy at heart. um, let's go over to our Week 16 power rankings, James. How about that?
Before we go over to this, at the power rank, I'll do it in the power rankings because it'll be perfect timing. So
Okay.
I'm good to go to the power rankings
All
first.
right. Week 16 power rankings. Give me your 1 through 5, homie.
Not much of a change in my 1 through 5. I have Cincinnati at number one still. They beat Tampa Bay. Yeah, it probably was closer than I thought, and they gave up more points than I thought. But they won the game, and I see the Cincinnati after the rough start, the Cincinnati team's building up steam, and I like what I'm seeing out of them. Can't I? They beat Kansas City, who I have at number two, so I can't really put them behind Kansas City. And number three, I have Philadelphia, who, while yeah, they have the best record in the league, honestly, they have the easiest schedule in the league, and being at number three is kind of a gift for them. If I were to go based on strength of schedule, they'd probably be at 10, or
Okay.
or strength of victory, they'd probably be at 10 because they keep winning, but they're not. It's not like they're playing the hardest teams in the league.
I got you.
Number 4, I have Buffalo, and I almost flipped Buffalo and Philadelphia because I had Miami in my top 10, and Buffalo beat, yeah, it was a home game, yeah, it was a close game, but division games are always close. Buffalo stuck it out. The weather probably played a little bit of a factor into it, which is what kept me from flipping Buffalo and Philadelphia for 3-4. So left Buffalo at 4. And then at 5, I had dropped San Francisco way down. A couple weeks ago, I had them after the
Jimmy G.
Jimmy G injury. I dropped them down to what? What did I drop them down to? Out of the top 10. No, I dropped them down to 7. So I'm just
Okay.
correcting here, and I put them back into my top 5 because I had the opportunity with Dallas losing to drop Dallas out of my top 5, but I couldn't really put them ahead of the teams ahead of them because those teams keep winning. And I think outside of Philadelphia, that might be the exception for my top 4 teams that I think all of them are better than San Francisco. I think I think it'd be a toss up if Philadelphia and San Francisco meet in the playoffs on who wins that game. But either team could win. It just depends on. I think if it was Jimmy G, I would have San Francisco definitely ahead of Philadelphia, but I'm not certain about Purdy yet.
Gotcha. Yeah, understandably so. Mr. Irrelevant. All right. Well, for me, James, nothing changed here, 1 through 5. I got the same 5 guys as you, just
Yeah.
different order. I still got Philly at 1 week at a time, 1 win at a time, all that kind of fun stuff. Buffalo at 2. And much like the situation they had with the Jets, whatever last week or the week before, they kind of got their revenge on them, which was nice. Cincinnati at 3. That game was interesting. I was out to dinner, kind of watching it while I was eating with the family. Tampa Bay had some early momentum,
Hmm.
but then Cincy got going and they never stopped. At 4, Kansas City, that was a weird one. I kind of wondered, were they looking ahead? Because it was pretty wild to see Houston hanging in there for as long as they did in that game. And then at 5, I've got San Francisco. It look, Purdy, Kittle, CMC, they were solid on offense, and the defense really shut down Kenneth Walker. I wouldn't say they shut down Geno Smith, but they contained him very well. He had like 200 something yards. And it just, I like them a lot, but I agree with you. We got to see more out of Purdy to kind of get a better idea what that means for their playoff prospects. But it definitely looks like everybody's chipping in, making it happen on that team.
Hmm. Exactly. For for 6 through 10 for me, at 6 I have Dallas. They lost to Jacksonville. I didn't want to kill them too much because I think they overlooked Jacksonville looking at this game that's coming this week. And I told you going into the weekend
Yeah.
that's what felt like what was happening.
Yeah, they
Was
were making comments. Yep.
they were really overlooking Jacksonville, and so I I think that was more the reason why they lost to Jacksonville. Not not that they Jacksonville's a bad team. I still think Dallas is top 3 AFC team or NFC teams. I think for top 4 NFC teams, like basically my list has my where I'm ranking currently the teams in the NFC. Um, if I were to extract them out, like Minnesota, they moved
Yeah.
up 1 spot after that comeback against Indy. It's also this is kind of like how did that happen? Who did I drop out of my top 10? Oh no,
Baltimore.
I'm Baltimore. Thank you. I was like, who did I drop out of my top 10? And then I got Baltimore. So Minnesota moved up 1 spot. This is more of that's what it is. Is Baltimore dropped down, which pushed Minnesota up
Yeah.
and kind of pushed the Chargers up a little. Pushed the Chargers up a little bit too. They
Yeah, I
barely beat
like how you
Tennessee
I like
yet.
how you did that though. Yeah.
It's Tennessee. They barely beat Tennessee. So um I still have my concerns about the Chargers. Their run game, they did seem to shut down Henry. which is
Yeah.
the biggest concern of the Chargers this year has been the run game, but they have not been consistent, and they have not been consistent, and it's just I'm very hesitant to having them at 8. I I'm not that solid on them there, and they did it. They finally did it. They cracked my top 10. At number 9, I moved the Lions up 6 spots to
Yeah.
number 9 after the win against the Jets. I talked about the resiliency, but also I came across this article on NFL.com. It's ranking the 5, 7, and 7 teams.
Okay.
And this article epitomizes how I feel about the Lions. I'm just going to read the last paragraph of it, and you'll be like, yes, that's how I feel about the Lions. After Sunday's big road win in New York, the schedule sets up nicely for Detroit to make a postseason run, presenting 3 teams all under 500. Get a little assistance along the way, and the Lions could become just the second team in NFL history to start 1-6 and make the postseason, joining the 1970 Cincinnati Bengals. Of course, all this bubbling optimism is sure to make a lifelong Lions fan queasy, anticipating the rug getting pulled out in Week 8 in Green Bay, probably by backup Packers quarterback Jordan Love, because that's how these things usually go.
Yes. Matt Flynn, anyone?
Yeah. Anyways, they made it to my top 10. I'm finally fully on board with this team. And honestly, of all the teams in the NFC that have a shot at the playoffs, I wholeheartedly believe that currently right now, because it's going to go through Philadelphia, the best shot is Philadelphia to make the Super Bowl. The second best shot in the NFC is San Francisco to make the Super Bowl. Then Dallas, because I think Dallas and Philadelphia are very similar teams and very, very comparable teams. Then Minnesota, and I think the 5th best team in the NFC to make the Super Bowl, the 5th highest chance in the NFC, is the fucking Detroit Lions, which means they're going to lose their last 3 games.
Oh, why'd you say that?
Fuckers. Number 10, I have the Miami Dolphins. They lost to Buffalo. I'm not going to kill them.
Yeah.
I can't drop them after losing a hard-fought competitive game in Division 2, a team that I have in the top 5.
Yeah, I hear you on that, man. I felt similar in ways. Yeah, and so for me, I got the Chargers at 6. I moved them up 2 spots. It feels a little high for me, especially because Herbert had 2 picks in that game. But I did it anyhow because I wanted to find a way to penalize Dallas and Baltimore on my board. And this was like the most logical move I could make to drop those guys down. And so at 7, I've got Dallas. If it weren't for their 10 wins, I might have dropped them lower. Another performance like that one, and I probably will. But, Dallas, the big thing is that they're their own worst enemy. They're getting in their own way. Like whether they're trying to have Dak do too much or what, I don't know. But they played way better as a team back in the Cooper Rush days earlier in the year. At 8, I got the Ravens. I dropped them down 1 spot as well. Similar to Dallas, I'm respecting their record. And I know Lamar, it was weird. He had 1 pass or whatever in that pass game. It was like, why did he even do that? Like they had Huntley play the whole rest of the game. And so either way, regardless of Lamar, I have concerns about Baltimore because when you watch their tape all year, they just it looks like there's cracks in that team. And when J.K. Dobbins is healthy, it like takes that offense up a whole nother notch. But it's like the defense has been a little bit shaky. Lamar, when he plays a halfway decent defense, seems he's shaky. So I don't know. They're on my watch list. At 9, I see you
That
looking
was
at something.
another injury. Yeah, no, that was another injury this week. I mean, you might have no, you touched on it. Never mind.
Okay.
Because you were talking about Baltimore, and it clicked in my head that like they put it was Duvernay they put on IR. So and you kind of already touched on that. So sorry, I just
It's all good. It's all good.
Campbell might be out. Calais
What's that?
Campbell got hurt. Campbell got hurt in the game.
Oh, gotcha. I didn't know that.
He
I
has
like him.
he's a long shot to play this week. He hurt his knee. So that's what it was.
Okay.
Campbell and Peters might be out this week.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right. So then at 9, James, I've got the Lions. I moved them up one spot. Like I mentioned earlier, there was kind of like that questionable pass interference non-call. But that's okay. They're rolling, and I'm happy. 10, I've got the Dolphins. I dropped them down one. Just a small ding for those guys. I think the real story with Miami is that Tua got back on track. Mostert had a freaking sweet run in that game. It was like a 60-something yarder. And they gave Buffalo a run for their money. So I definitely didn't want to go farther down with them. But the way the board kind of worked out, they got a little bit of a drop. Back
Mm-hmm.
to you at 11, man.
All right. At 11, I have Cleveland. This is kind of 11, 12, I have Cleveland, Baltimore. So when I did my board and I did my rankings, with what I saw in Baltimore, um, I I had moved them down a lot. And then when I saw Cleveland, I moved them up one or two spots. But then when before I sent my rankings to you, I was looking at them and I realized that I basically had Baltimore and Cleveland flipped at 11 and
Okay.
12. So, or no, it was Baltimore I had at 11 and I had Cleveland at 13. And then when I looked at it, I was like, I can't have Cleveland ahead of Baltimore. So I kind of had to remake my rankings right in here to reflect that Cleveland just beat Baltimore.
Sure.
So Cleveland got a 3-spot jump. Baltimore dropped 5. The loser in that is Tennessee. They lost to the Chargers, who I had in my top 10. I had ranked ahead of them, and I dropped them one spot. It's just kind of how it fell out with, and I can justify it with them losing, but with the Cleveland Baltimore thing, I don't think Cleveland's 2 spots better than Baltimore, but definitely they're 1 spot. So Tennessee ended up at 13 after reconfiguring there. 14, I have the New York Jets. I dropped them 1 spot. This is going to sound weird, but I think the benching of Zach Wilson was the best thing that could have happened to him.
Yeah.
Because he looked like a different quarterback against the Lions.
Yeah.
And I'm
He
not
had some
talking,
big plays.
I'm not talking about just because of the plays he had. Just his confidence, even the announcers were commenting on his footwork and his poise in the pocket, and that was big for him because he had a lot of shoddy just mechanics before he was benched. So I didn't want to kill the Jets too much, especially seeing as though I was bringing the Lions up to my top 10. I didn't think it would be justified to drop them much more than 1.
Yeah.
At 15, I have Jacksonville. They beat Dallas. Yeah, it was a 40-34 win, and you can make the argument that the touchdown in overtime was fluky.
Yeah, I got you.
You can make that argument, but still they came back, and yeah, it probably was more on Dallas, but it felt right moving them up to the top 15 based on that win because like I've said, I've seen the progression of that team throughout the season where they seem they're starting to be more consistent, and even when they lost to Detroit, they still played well in that game and they're being playing more consistently. So I thought it was appropriate to move them to 15.
I got you. Yeah, I like the move. All right, so James, for me at 11, I've got Minnesota. I moved him up one spot. Hey, what do you know? 11 wins. You're at the 11th spot on my board. I kind of dropped them down after that Detroit loss a couple weeks ago. Um, maybe too low, but I wanted to have them below the Lions on my board. And then I didn't want to like overcorrect this week because even though they got the win, they never should have they never should have been that close with Indy, man, or
Uh-huh.
that far down. And so I thought, hey, they're at 11 just outside the top 10. That's kind of what they get because once again they got a win, but it was kind of a crazy win, just like I keep saying, going back to Chicago earlier in the year. They've had a lot of these dicey kind of games, but they pull them out. And so, they're just a little suspect. At
Oh,
12, I've got
a
the Giants.
little suspect. Do you know what their point differential is?
If it was like the wrong way the last time I checked.
I think they're now +2.
Okay, yeah, they were
Yep,
they were negative going into
they're
last week. Yeah.
they're +2. The Lions are +5.
Okay.
So they're very suspect. I give you that. I give you that. I
Yes.
just
Yes.
wanted to point out the point differential there.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. So at 12, I've got the Giants. I moved them up 3 spots. Kind of like we've been saying all year. As Saquon goes,
Hmm.
so does this team. He ran like shit in recent weeks, and they skid. And then he got back on track this past week against Washington, especially in the second half, and they walked away with that game towards the end. 13, I've got the Commanders. I dropped them down 2, having tied the Giants just a couple weeks ago and then losing this past week. That was an easy flop on my board. 14, I've got the Titans. They've now lost 4 straight, which is bad with the playoffs being right around the corner. So I moved them down one spot on my board. I think that they're going to have a chance to kind of like lock it back into gear this week since they're playing Houston, but that is a divisional game for them, so you kind of just never know. And I guess we'll see what happens with Tannehill. And then at 15, James, I've got the Jets. I dropped them down one spot. I didn't really even want to drop them, kind of like you were
Hmm.
saying. It was a really hard fought game against the Lions. I did like seeing rookie Garrett Wilson, the wide receiver for the Jets, had a solid game, 4 receptions, 98 yards. You know, I just look at the Jets. They got Brees Hall. He'll come back from injury next year. They got Garrett Wilson. If they can figure out the quarterback thing, I don't know if Mike White's the guy long term, but that defense has played great this year. The future's bright for the Jets, man. And I think kind of like the Lions, it's like Jets fans got to be happy about what they've been doing this year. Back to you at 16.
All right, my 16, 17, 18 kind of I just flopped a couple from last week, and I think it's more of a this is where I see these teams going. Like right now, yeah, I have the Giants at 16. They beat Washington. I had them at 18 last week. Um, and so they should be ahead of Washington. So I moved them ahead of Washington. Washington stayed the same. I had them at 17 last week. I thought, you know, 17 was about right for them, and they're currently in the playoffs. So I mean, if you want, you can make the argument that they should be higher because they're currently in the playoffs. And then at 18, I have Seattle, and I dropped Seattle 2 spots. And yeah, they lost to San Francisco, but I see this team in decline, and I think right now, if that Giants Seattle the Seattle and the Giants game was played this week, I think the Giants would win it. I think Seattle would lose to Washington the way Seattle is playing right now. So I put my rankings to reflect that. And then 19 and 20, I had New Orleans and then Atlanta last week, and I have that the same this week. It's kind of New Orleans beat Atlanta. I'm not impressed by them beating Atlanta, especially because it was only a 3 point win, and it was only a 3 point win, and it was Desmond Ritter's first start in the NFL.
Hmm.
Um, And Atlanta got lucked out to stay in my top 20 because the team I had teams I had immediately behind them either lost, and I also took a team out of my top 20. I took a team out of my top 15 that I had said I was going to, based on what was going on, what I was seeing with that team, and especially how that team lost. I dropped the team way down, so Atlanta kind of lucked out to stay into my top 20.
Okay, I got you. All right, flipping it back my way, James. I've got Green Bay at 16. I moved them up 2 spots. I like seeing Aaron Jones shine for them as he usually does. Interesting, neither team scored in that fourth quarter. Ended up really being a fairly boring game. But I don't know, man. There's something going on in Green Bay that, and I don't know, like they made comments this past week about, oh, they could still get in the playoffs and this and that. I don't know if it's going to happen. I just, man, I don't know. Aaron Rodgers, those rookie wide receivers are getting better. They got the good running backs. It's like there's still stuff there. There's still reason for hope, but it's fading. It's dim. It's 17. I got the Patriots. I dropped them down one. Would have gone more, but I don't know. It was a wild game. Ramondre Stevenson, dude, had 172 yards on the ground. And we talked about the Jacoby Myers situation. So just a horrible way to lose that one. 18, I've got the Browns. I moved them up 3 spots. Last week we were talking about Watson put together like a good combined yardage performance. This past week made me sort of rethink some things. He had 6 runs, which worries me that they could be cannibalizing Chubb and Hunt, which is not their recipe for success. I get it, Watson's, a fairly mobile quarterback, but I want to see him doing more from the pocket
Mhm.
and continuing to shake off that rust, which it was like this week maybe step back a little bit. At 19, I've got Pittsburgh. I moved them up 3 spots. It was pretty underwhelming on offense for Pittsburgh, both in the pass game and in the run game, but their defense just like completely shut down Carolina. And it gave them plenty of opportunities to pull ahead, which they did. So good for them. And then at 20, I've got Jacksonville. I moved them up 4 spots. We talked about it. You mentioned it. The ending was a little bit flukish. But, like we say it every week with Jacksonville, when they're on, they can play with the best of them. It's just that they're young and they're a little bit streaky. Otherwise, I'd have them a lot higher on my board. Back to you at 21, man.
All right, at 21, I have Pittsburgh. They got a 2 spot bump after beating Carolina. It's just kind of like I had to put Pittsburgh ahead of Carolina because Carolina won. And also, when it came down to it, I had New England and Vegas so close together that Carolina took probably more of a drop down than I thought they should have. But it's what happened on my board this week. Vegas, I have them up 4 spots to 22. This was kind of like I had dropped New England, which is my number 23 team, down so much after
Yeah.
what I'm seeing on that and how unimpressed I was with that fucking last play and just how idiotic and how bad of a team do you have to be that close to Vegas anyways. And then it came down to it. So Vegas and New England were so close. So I had to put Vegas ahead of New England. So New England ended up dropping 12 spots to 23. Carolina is the team that kind of lost out here to drop 2 spots to 24, just simply because of the whole Vegas Carolina thing or Vegas New England thing, and Carolina lost, so they lost out. New England, I'm sorry, Houston at 25. They always play tough against Kansas City. Always play tough against Kansas City, and but they always end up losing to Kansas City. They dropped down 1 spot, and this is also because every single team. Oh, I have a fuck up on my board. That I think every single team that was behind them either lost or beat or were so far down that I couldn't move whatchamacallit, I couldn't move Houston behind them. I'm sorry, I'm
I
trying to
gotcha.
fix my board as I go. But
Yeah.
yeah, so the Houston ends up at 25 for me.
Okay. All right. So at 21, James, I've got Carolina. I dropped them down 4 spots. I think I got a little ahead of myself last week with how big of a bump I gave them. So this is a bit of a correction there, mimicking what you're saying. I wanted to have them below Pittsburgh. And it was tough, this past week watching their run game disappear because that's really like part of their recipe for success since Wilkes took over as head coach. But Pittsburgh stifled them, man. 22, got Seattle. I dropped them down 2 spots. They've now lost 4 out of their last 5, and they've got 2 tough matchups coming up with Kansas City and then the New York Jets. Their playoff picture or their playoff chances quickly slipping away. I still say, even if they miss the playoffs, much better season than anybody could have anticipated going into the year.
I thought it was
20,
5 of 6.
Is it 5 or 6? Maybe I missed one. Maybe I miscounted. I'll let you check that out. At 23, I've
You're
got
right. You're right.
Tampa.
It's 4 or 5
Okay, gotcha.
because it
And
was
so I,
Thursday night. Okay, never mind. That's where I messed up. It was Thursday night, so I added an extra loss in there. So last time it was actually 4 out of 5. So I just assumed it was 5 of 6 now because it was
gotcha.
saying we did Friday.
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah, and so Tampa Bay at 23, even though they beat Seattle earlier in the year, I flipped them on my board. Basically, I just think Tampa Bay is playing subpar compared to Seattle, and they both have the same record. I'm sorry, Seattle has one more win right now, and so I just kind of thought, okay, I'm going to make that move. At 24, I've got the Raiders. I moved them up 3 spots. James, I don't even know what to say about that team. Really don't. I just think it's interesting that Bill Belichick struggles against his disciples. They were saying he's like, I don't know, 500 or something against guys that worked for him, which was kind of weird because he just like smokes everybody else. But either way, the Raiders, super streaky this year, hard to trust. 25, I've got the Saints, moved them up 3 spots. Guess what happened, James? They got Taysom Hill involved in the action, like I was kind of saying a few weeks ago. And what do you know? They got the win. And so good for them, but still very disappointing year for the Saints. Back to you at 26.
26, I have Tampa Bay. I dropped them down 1 spot. It feels a little high having Tampa Bay at 26, but I have to remember that they still have the best record in their division, even though I have every single team in their division ranked ahead of them.
Yeah.
Somehow, that's how bad this team is.
Yeah, how does that work?
At 27, I have the Colts. I didn't drop them after losing to Minnesota. I had Minnesota in my top 10. Plus, all of my teams around here lost except for 2, which we'll get to in a minute.
Sure.
We'll get to one of them, and then one of them's in my dumpster fire. So, where was I really going to put the Colts? Because I couldn't put the teams that won this week much higher than where they are. 28, I have the Bears. When it came down to it, I thought they played tough against Philadelphia, and they had a shot at winning that game. And I really wanted to move them up, but I couldn't justify it. I couldn't with these teams. I think the teams that I have at 26, 27 would still beat Chicago as bad as I think the other 2 teams are. I think Chicago would lose to them. I think 28 might be a little bit high for Chicago. But it's just all these teams around here are absolutely pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. This is what I sent you, and I didn't notice this till now. I forgot to flip 2 teams. At 29, I have Denver. I had sent you it with Arizona, but Denver beat Arizona, so Denver should be ranked ahead of Arizona. I don't think Denver should be ranked ahead of any much more teams in the league, but at a minimum, they should be ranked ahead of the team they just beat.
Sure.
And then So they moved up one spot, and Arizona dropped one spot to 30 after losing to Denver.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay. So yeah, back over my way, I've got Atlanta at 26. I dropped them down 3 spots. The Saints had their number twice this year, and both teams sporting a 5-9 record. So it only made sense to get Atlanta below New Orleans on my board. 27, I've got the Bears. I dropped them down 2. I'm trying to keep them ahead of the Rams and the Colts just because I like their prospects at quarterback more, at least for this season. I know Stafford, hey, he's coming back next year. I guess he made some comments about possibly retiring after the neck injury. Um, and so next year it's too far away. We're looking at this week.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I've got the Rams at 28. I dropped them down 2. Messed up that Baker came out first week with them, got the win. This past week, not so much. He wasn't able to replicate that success against an underperforming Packers team. 29, I got the Colts. I'm keeping them where they were at. They showed some signs of life, which is more than I can say about the next couple teams on my board. And then at 30, Denver, just like you, James, I flipped them with Arizona. You know, um, they just both suck, like you said.
Yeah.
Dumpster fire, your way,
At
man.
31, I have Green Bay. Though you may argue Green Bay won this week. Yeah, they beat my 32 team, the Rams. So where the fuck are they going to go? The above Arizona? I think Green Bay would lose to Arizona. Honestly, I don't see Green Bay winning much more games this year, except for Week 18 against the Lions to crush our soul. And the Rams, look, yeah, I understand your argument when you get to your 32, your worst team,
Dumpster fire, yeah.
your dumpster fire, but I think I think that the team you have in your dumpster fire, at least one of them, don't belong there based on where they're playing. I think it's more of a, I think the argument you're making is more based on their schedule,
Record,
and
yeah.
that it's more based on their schedule and how they're playing better teams that are better than how that team's actually performing. Because I think that team's performing well, and the Rams just fucking blow. But it does
Well
still
said.
hold true. It does still hold
Well
true
said.
that
Yes.
every year, at least one team that plays on Championship Sunday doesn't make the playoff the following year.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, man. Pretty freaking wild. All right, so for me, 31, I got the Cardinals. Kind of talked about it. I flipped them in Denver. 32, I've got Houston. And, still 2 games below the next worst team. I've been saying it for a long time, James. I want to bump them, but I need them to get a win. If they get a win, I will definitely bump them. Until then, I got to stick to my word. But I agree with you. They do show signs of life. They do play some inspiring football. But fucking one win is brutal, dude.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I would just like what before we go to the picks, the last comment on the power rankings. There's now um, 5 teams eliminated from playoff contention,
Okay.
and those 5 teams we have in the bottom in our bottom five, bottom set, bottom 6 somewhere. But it's Arizona was eliminated, and Denver has now been eliminated, and the Rams were eliminated from the playoffs. I believe that was just this past week they were eliminated.
Okay.
Um, and then Houston and Chicago had previously been eliminated. Let me.
Gotcha.
I wish I could go back and see last week's, but I think the Rams. I'm pretty sure the Rams and the Cardinals were eliminated this past week. I'm not certain about Denver.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's good to know, man. I appreciate you letting me in on that. Are you good there?
Yes.
All right. Well, cool. Well, let's switch it on over and let's do our Week 16 game picks. Real quick, James. We both went 11 wins last week. You are now sitting at 128 on the year, good for 57%. I am sitting at 139 on the year, good for 62%. And so, whenever you're ready, man, go ahead and give it a rip.
So I I had to go back and check because I thought I had picked Baltimore over. I'm sorry, Cleveland over
Cleveland over
Baltimore.
Baltimore. Did I miss that?
Um, because I, I I may have misspoken because I'm looking at my notes from my model last week, and
Okay.
I had Cleveland winning 19-17 in
Okay.
my model.
Well, we can
But
always check the tape.
I went back and looked, and I went back to the tape, and I think, or no, I went back to my other notes on who I picked, and it looks like I did pick Baltimore, but I didn't note it as an override.
Okay.
So I still have to go back and check the tape on that one.
Yeah, check the tape. Let me know. We'll switch it up if we got it wrong on the sheet. No big deal.
Yeah, because everything I have is telling me that basically telling me I picked Cleveland.
Oh, I know, man. And I'm up by 11 with what, 3 weeks to go. So every win's gonna count for you. You know.
Yeah. So I still have to go back. Like I didn't actually look at the sheet till like an hour before we started today. So I haven't gone back and checked. And it could be right. I could have picked Baltimore, but all my notes say Cleveland for some reason. Anyways, we will go to starting with Thursday night game. We have Jacksonville at oh, and also this week for those out there that forget, the majority of the games are on Saturday, not Sunday. They have a triple header on Christmas Day this year, much like they do on Thanksgiving Day. But those are the only three games on Sunday. So they're doing the normal two windows on Saturday with a Saturday night game, which is going to be the NBC Sunday night game. Um, but then they have the Thursday game and the Monday night game this week.
Good.
Just
Yeah,
for the
good to point
scheduling
that out,
part
man.
out there.
Yeah.
Um, but first up, we have Thursday night Jacksonville Jaguars at the New York Jets. So when I modeled this out, I came up with a 20-19 victory for the Jets.
Okay.
But what concerns me about this game is Trevor Lawrence is playing so much better than Zach Wilson. Yeah, Zach Wilson
Yeah.
showed a little bit against the Lions with how he's kind of corrected some of those issues. But I think the Jets are on the decline. They started hot and they're kind of declining, and I think the Jaguars are on the up. So I'm going to override my model this week and go with Jacksonville. Not very confidently go with Jacksonville, but I'm going to go with Jacksonville.
No, hey, I hear you, and I think you can make a good case there, like you pointed out with Trevor Lawrence. For me, I'm going with the Jets. My model's really close, and it has it as a 2.5 point game going to the Jets. But when I look at the heat map, it's like they're trading back and forth all the way down. I look at it like this: it's in New York, and both of these teams are still in the playoff hunt, and it's kind of like an early playoff game of sorts. And so I want to give the favor to the Jets, who I think are playing better defense, and that could be the big factor in them pulling out the win here.
Next game we have is Atlanta at Baltimore. And I'm looking at my notes for my model,
Yes.
and my model has this game as a tie, as a legit tie, not that point oh 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 whatever. Like
Yeah,
I went out like 25 decimal points,
they're just locked.
and it's locked as
Man,
a dead heat tie.
I gotta adjust some shit in my model, man, 'cause I got Baltimore like winning steadily here.
Yeah, and which is it, and I can see that, but for some reason my model's coming up with tie. I haven't dug into like where what it's thinking this tie. Maybe it's pulling something from Ritter, or maybe it's the lack of stats on Ritter that's kind of throwing it off.
I bet you
Uh,
that's why mine has got such a big spread, is because of Ritter. I'm glad you just said that.
so I'm I think Baltimore is going to win the game. So I gave them the edge because it's at Baltimore. I don't want to pick a tie because that's just absurd. Um, so I'm going to go with Baltimore in that game.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, I'm going Baltimore as well. My model's got them winning by 9. Uh, and they've been underperforming recently, in my opinion. Some of that's injuries, some of that's other reasons. But with it being a 9-point spread in the model, I definitely got to pick them. It's in Baltimore. Heat map is big time in their favor, and so I'm sticking with the model here.
All right. Next up, we have the Detroit Lions at the Carolina Panthers, and it's interesting. I modeled this. So when I do my picks, I do my picks and then I decide where I think I'm going to override my model
Yeah,
before I even look at the spreadsheet. And we'll get a little bit more into it with yours. I'm curious what your model has, but my model has Carolina winning by 5.
okay.
And I just can't see it. The way the Lions are playing, last week against the Jets, my model had the Jets winning by a touchdown. And the week before, it's just I'm trying to figure out this, and this might be overzealous on the Lions, but I'm going to override my model and think the Lions win this game. I'm just curious at what your model said about the game.
Sure. Yeah. So you got it at 5. My model has it as a 1-point spread in Carolina's favor. And I think when I'm looking at my heat map, what I would say is that there's room for me to upgrade Wilkes and his coaching staff. And if I did that, it could probably get it closer to what you have for that 5-point spread. Um, but and I probably should do that. But I'm overriding the model like you, and I'm going with Detroit because I just I don't know, drinking the Kool-Aid, eating the cornbread, whatever. I just see how much conviction they have and how much fire they're playing with, and they know they got to win this game. I think Carolina, they're a much stronger defense,
Hmm.
but the Lions offensively, that offensive line is dominant, and that can let them really run their offense even against a really tough defense. And so, I'm going to override the model, and I'm keeping my fucking fingers crossed.
Yeah, exactly. Fingers crossed.
Hopefully, that sheds some light on what I got going on here, since you were curious.
No, I was just curious at where your model was because I noticed and you had marked it as you overrode your model on it. So I was just curious how close our models were because sometimes, like last week, I forget what game it was. Oh,
Yeah, we had a lot that were like
it
spot
was the,
on,
it
and
was
then
the
we had
Indy
like one or
Minnesota.
two that were like wildly off.
It was the Minnesota game. My model had Indy winning by 2, and yours had Minnesota winning by like 12 or 14.
and,
And it
and
was
then it
like,
ends up being a wild game. Yeah.
yeah. So, anyways, so this was where I was curious. Buffalo at Chicago.
Yes.
So this game in my model is closer than I thought it would be. Um, it's actually a 3-point win by Buffalo, and that's kind of consistent with what I have going on with the Bears in my model recently. I have them not quite good enough to win, but good enough to keep games close.
Sure.
Uh, and I'm going to go with Buffalo on it. I think my model, the 3-point win, I think it's a little closer than the game will be, but I'm going to go with Buffalo in this game.
I got you. So for me, I've got Buffalo by 16. And so, I'm sticking with the model, whether or not they win by 16. I guess I don't know. Maybe while we're talking, I'll try to check out what their line is, with the sport book. But, 16 is obviously a fat freaking spread,
Hmm.
especially when it's on the road. It's just that, heat map wise, the only category Chicago is better is with their running game. And that's just because Buffalo doesn't really feature the running game. I
It's
mean, Josh
eight and a
Allen,
half,
if I
by the way.
plugged some of him into it, then maybe they'd be better. So,
It's 8.5.
yeah, so I'm doubling the spread, which is kind of wild. But either way, we're only picking the winner here, so I'm going Buffalo. And Buffalo might be taking their foot off the gas a little bit in this game too. So you never
Yeah,
know.
you never know. Next game up we have, and this is an interesting one in my model. I'll get to New Orleans at Cleveland. My model does not have a touchdown scored in this game.
Hmm.
My model has a 12-9 victory by Cleveland, which I thought was very interesting because this is I'm glancing back, and I think this is the first game since I started modeling. Let me see if I can go back to more weeks. At least in the last 4 weeks, this is the first game that I didn't have a single touchdown scored uh,
Okay.
in the game for either team. I'm going to go back. I'll go back a couple weeks while you're talking about it, but to see if I can find a week where I didn't have.
Yeah.
Because I started my model like week 6. But I'm with Cleveland in this game.
Okay. Yeah, I'm taking Cleveland as well. My model's got Cleveland by 5.5, which I can tell you I definitely don't trust. The Buffalo one, obviously, that was a monster spread. Cleveland, 5.5 is closer, but still pretty big when you look at kind of like how they've been sputtering on offense. And um, I've tried to like rein in some of my ratings with Watson, but it's I probably need to handicap some of the running back ratings a little bit, like we talked about with Watson running more. It kind of cannibalizes like their true run game. New Orleans on paper has the better defense, offensively very inconsistent, mostly like inadequate unless they get Taysom Hill involved, like I kind of mentioned earlier. And so I feel good about Cleveland. I just you know, it's interesting that you're saying no touchdowns because I could see it being a very low scoring game. Um, but sometimes those games, those are the ones that surprise you. So,
Yeah, and I went back and checked out all the scores for my model, and the only previous one that I had close to it is I had a 10-7
okay.
game, which obviously had 2 touchdowns scored in, and then I
Yeah.
have another one this week that's somewhat close, but has a touchdown score. I have 2 that are close, but at least they have a touchdown scored in those games, and we'll get to those when we get to those games. But
Sure.
yeah, I just thought that was interesting. Next up, we have Seattle at Kansas City. I was shocked at the final score to my model to this game.
What do you got?
24-23 Kansas City.
Well,
And
Seattle's in desperation mode.
I don't think these teams are that close. Like
No.
like Seattle is definitely on the decline. Kansas City is one of the best teams in the league. They have Mahomes. I'm on Kansas City, but I I don't know why my model has it so close. I could not find what was throwing my model like that.
I think that honestly, Seattle, to some degree, has similarities to the New York Giants in that if you can shut down Kenneth Walker,
Hmm.
you're going to beat Seattle. Whether or not Kansas City can do that, that remains to be seen. We'll find out this week. Um, I do have the Kansas City defensive front seven significantly stronger than the Seattle offensive line. But I will say that the Seattle offensive line has overperformed this year with their two rookie tackles. And so, that's something I could probably fudge up a little bit. It would still be in Kansas City's favor. This is another one in my model that's a wild spread. It's 15 and a half. I don't know. It's kind of like the Buffalo one where Buffalo's offense can be so explosive, you never know what could happen. Kansas City's offense is so explosive, you never know it could happen. 15's big to put money on. I'm just picking the winner, so I'm picking Kansas City, man.
Next up, we have the Giants at the Minnesota Vikings. And this game here, I could see Minnesota kind of having. mm,
Let it go to keep the Jets in the picture.
having a little. Well, no, they're the Giants they're playing. So how would Minnesota
Oh,
let?
yeah. I don't know why I was thinking the Jets. Sorry.
Um,
Yeah,
I
the
could.
Jets are the Jets are playing yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. Or we already yeah. Holy cow. I'm having an issue here, James.
That's okay. Maybe I said New York Jets and through you. If I did,
Crossed
I
my wires, man.
meant New
Crossed
York
my
Giants.
wires.
What I was going to say is I could see Minnesota having a letdown
Yeah, we
in
already
this
talked
game.
about the Jets. They're playing Jacksonville. There we go.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I could see Minnesota having a letdown in this game. They had that big emotional comeback against Indianapolis. They clinched the division. They honestly have, but they honestly have hope still of having the number one no the what number one seed in the NFC. Thank you. If I could speak, um, they have they're 2 games behind Philadelphia with three left. Honestly, this week might be the week where Philadelphia wraps up the number one seed
Yeah.
because they have the tiebreaker on Minnesota. I don't believe they have the tiebreaker on. Just saying 2 and 2 be the same. Yeah, they would have the tiebreaker on. It would be like the third or the fourth tiebreaker on San Francisco.
Okay.
But they would have to lose like all 3 of their games. So they basically could, with a win this week, Philadelphia could wrap up the number one seed in the division
Yeah.
or in the
So I mean,
conference. So
Minnesota.
Minnesota's still in it. I could see a letdown. I'm not going to predict a letdown because I think Minnesota will be able to, if not hold. Sorry, wife sent a weird message. If not, I I'm just gonna go with Minnesota on it. I don't feel good about
Yeah.
the situation going into the game with the letdown that could
Yeah.
happen to Minnesota, but I'm gonna stick with Minnesota in the game.
I gotcha. Yeah, and I'm going Minnesota. My heat map is entirely green with exception to the defensive coordinator, which I give the favor to the Giants. And so it's hard for me to pick against the Vikings. It's just that, like you said, you know, what are they really playing for at this point? It's kind of early to like totally just go on cruise control. And I think that they want to show people that they do belong where they're at, especially after that, kind of weird come from behind win last week. But I don't know. The Giants, they're obviously fighting for their playoff life still. They're in it now and they want to stay in it. And so
Hmm.
I think that they're playing for more, but I do believe Minnesota's a better team. And so, if this was week 17 or week 18, I might flip it. But for now, I'm going with the Vikings, man.
Next up, we have Cincinnati at New England.
Yeah, what's going on here, James? You're freaking me out with this pick, man.
I know my model comes up with a 26-20 victory by New England, and I sit down and
They
look.
can score 26? Is that all defense?
It might be all defense. They did score 24 this past
I
week.
know, I know.
Um, I think
Nothing through the air, all running and fucking defense
true,
or
and I'm
special teams.
yeah, and I'm gonna look up something on my model. Why it's so my model has all basically last 10 games at home, last 10 games as an away team as a favorite. Everything is all as an underdog at home. Last 10 games as an underdog. Um, last 10 games as a home team as an underdog. So I don't like everything in my model. If I read into like the trends that go into my model, it should come up with Cincinnati.
Okay.
It should, like, especially when I get to the last 10 games as an underdog. Straight up, New England is 2-8.
Okay.
They've lost their last three. Last 10 games as a home underdog. They have lost their last five.
So you're just saying they're due is what you're telling me.
And
It's
I
like, when you play roulette and it's like red, 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 red. Oh, you got to put it on black. Black is due.
Yeah, and I'm trying to like look and see why my model is coming up with.
Maybe because it's in New England. Maybe
Yeah,
because
but I
Bill
don't have that
Belichick.
much.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't know. I can't pick the Patriots. I got Cincy by 7, and I feel like that's actually a very appropriate spread for this game. I think this is one where they could actually go over it because Cincinnati is that good offensively. New England is like all defense, and so maybe they slow them down. I have zero faith in New England's offense, man. And so, since he's gonna score at some point, it's not like New England's going to hold the ball for 40 or 45 minutes or something crazy. So,
So I figured it out in my model. New England has won their last three games against the Cincinnati Bengals.
okay. Yeah, so it's
Um,
got like, yeah, that's a factor. I got you.
and average points for average score of their last three games is 37.3 to 15.7.
Oh
New
man,
England.
that's a big spread.
Yeah. So the last three games, two of them were in Foxborough. One of them was in Cincinnati. They won 34-13. They won 35-17, and they won 43-17. But here's the thing about them is that the most recent that's 2014, 2016, and 2019.
Oh yeah, I don't know if it's relevant, but I hear what you're saying.
So I think my model's picking up something to that effect. I'm gonna
Yeah,
stick with New England in it and say that New England is gonna win the game.
sure.
And obviously you went with the Bengals. Excuse me. Uh, so we have Houston at Tennessee.
Yes, we do.
I did not like. I did not hear the Tannehill news. I had not seen the Tannehill news.
Yeah,
It
I'm going to try and look it up real quick.
It concerns me. So this pick is subject to change.
Ankle very, very likely out. Oh, very likely out for season, not just this
Whoa,
week. Holy shit.
whoa.
Okay, that's not good.
That's not good. This pick, we'll just say this pick is subject to change for both of us. I modeled this out at 19-14 Tennessee. I don't think my model took into account the Tannehill news.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna stick with Tennessee, and that's probably also why the spread is only 3.5.
Um, I don't know what I was doing when I put this in here. I put it in as Robert Tannehill into my model. Okay, let me just update it because this is an easy one for me to update. I'll tell you where I'm at now. I tell you what, I do like Malik Willis's mobility.
Yeah,
I still got Tennessee.
yeah.
I'm taking Tennessee still. It's tough because Houston. It's just Houston on paper is not good, and this game is in Tennessee. They can ride Derrick Henry. Tennessee's def. I mean, Tennessee is on a bad skid, but their defense can be really good when they're on. I think that they're getting into desperation mode for their playoff picture. And Vrabel, I gotta have faith in Vrabel, man. He always finds a way to outcoach and just get more out of his team than what they really have on paper.
Yeah, I agree there, and like I said, I might change it, I might not. I looking at the spread, I think the Tannehill injury was factored in without factoring it in,
Okay.
because I kind of like I my model has some spread information in there and various other things. I hesitantly sticking with Tennessee. I don't like the prospects of Willis, even though I was really high on him going into the draft.
They just gotta feed Henry and
Yeah.
let Willis get out of the pocket and try to do something that way.
Hmm. All right. Next up, we have the Washington Commanders at the San Francisco 49ers. This is one of the games I mentioned earlier that are weirdly low scoring.
Okay.
But I have a touchdown in this game. I have San Francisco winning 13-9. And
13 to 9. Okay, yeah. So touchdown, 2 field goals. I got you.
I'm sticking with San Francisco winning. I think San Francisco is the better team. I did like what I read with Washington that what's his face Young is he's going to be back soon. He's not going to be back this week, so that goes to San Francisco's favor. So I'm going to stick with San Francisco.
I got you. Yeah, I got to stick with San Francisco. I've got these teams, that far apart on my board. I'm feeling really good about San Francisco, even with Brock Purdy at quarterback. McCaffrey has been running really well. The defense has been playing lights out. Um, looking at my heat map, I do give right now because Debo, I got him out with that high ankle sprain.
Mm-hmm.
I give a little bit of the edge to the Washington receivers, but that's not enough to swing anything. And then really, like I probably like I got a 1 point swing for Heineke over Purdy, but it's just because Purdy's such an unknown commodity at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't need to lean on him, and so it's Washington is going to be more reliant on Heineke than San Francisco is going to be on Purdy, and so I'm taking San Fran. My model's got it by 4.5. I feel good about that.
Next up, we have the game. The game. Philadelphia Eagles at the Dallas Cowboys. This is going to
Yeah,
decide
which
the division.
may or may not have Jalen Hurts.
Yes. That doesn't matter with or without Jalen Hurts. I have Dallas winning this game. It's not going to decide the division this week. It's close to deciding the division. Basically, Philadelphia needs one win and one Dallas loss right now to decide the division because they're separated by 3 games. After this week, it'll be separated by 2 games. Um, so it's and then you go to the tiebreakers, whatever. I have Dallas winning this game 30-24. I'm not confident in Dallas the way they gave up the game against Jacksonville, but I thought that was predictable with the looking ahead, and I thought Dallas was really looking ahead towards this game,
Yeah,
so they won't be looking ahead or won't be looking ahead during this game, which will refocus them, and I think they'll be able to hold on in this game.
I gotcha. Yeah, so I've got Dallas here too, James, and my model, I have just put in there that Jalen Hurts is going to be out. If I plug him in, it swings it back to Philly. But here's the thing, even if he plays, I would still pick Dallas here because Philly is in the catbird seat right now in the NFC. Hurts is hurt. There's no reason to push him, and there's definitely no reason to show any more than you need to of your cards to Dallas. And so I think they're fine letting this game go. They're going to play good. They're going to, they don't want to, let guys get cold or get rusty or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no reason to push it and risk it coming back to bite them in the ass later. So I'm going Dallas here, man. I know that that's kind of like a weird explanation, but
No, it makes complete sense. I said since when Dallas lost to Philly, I've been saying since then that if Dak is healthy at the next go around, Dallas will win the game.
yeah.
Next up, we have the Saturday night game on NBC of the Las Vegas Raiders at the Pittsburgh Steelers one day after the 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Reception.
Oh yeah.
So, my model has Vegas winning 21-19.
That's tight.
It's a very tight game. Um, I'm going to stick with my model. It's not really like it's kind of like even for like everything with each team. It's like the trends that go into my model, like the last 5, last 10, last 5 for it's kind of like it's equally bad
Yeah.
for each team. So there's nothing I can glean from the trends. I think if you look at how Vegas played last week I think Vegas is going to be out to show that last week's win wasn't a fluke, even
Yeah,
though
and
it
it's
feels
it's
like it was a
it's
fluke.
it's tough. I'm looking at the AFC playoff picture here, and both these guys are 6-8, which honestly that's a win for Pittsburgh with everything they had going on coming into this year, to be honest. Um, but Miami is at 8-6, and I'm showing them right now on the NFL.com playoff picture that they're the last team on this playoff picture. And so you're talking a 2-game spread with 3 to go. I think it's too far away for either of these teams to get in the playoffs. I think because of that, there's no like edge in terms of like intensity or desperation. They're both like at that same, it means the same amount to each of these guys.
Hmm.
Pittsburgh, Tomlin already talked about the Franco thing. He wants to win this one for him. And I think, the players are going to want to fight hard and do that and honor him. whether or not they get the win, nobody knows. But my model has Pittsburgh winning by 3.5. I do like them with Kenny Pickett, and I believe he's playing, and so I'm gonna go Pittsburgh here, man. I don't trust the Raiders. I like Tomlin as a coach, and I like the direction that the Steelers are moving in. So and it's in Pittsburgh, so I'm going there, man.
Next up, we have the early window game on Christmas Day. The Green Bay Packers at the Miami Dolphins.
Yay, Christmas time of year.
My model has this game as a 27-26 win by Green Bay.
Okay. You said 27-26?
Yes.
That's tight.
I like more of what I see coming out of Miami than I do Green Bay. Plus, if my math is correct, Green Bay is currently a game and a half out with 3 to play, but I believe Green Bay lost to Seattle. I know they lost to Detroit. I think they lost to they lost. Okay, so they lost to Washington. They lost to New York. They lost to Washington. Doesn't look like they played Seattle. No, they didn't play Seattle. So they
Okay.
lost to Washington and they lost to the Giants. I was thinking they could theoretically be eliminated after this loss, but don't think I don't think they have a chance. I'm just going to say that they have too many too many losses this year to make the playoffs. I think at 9 losses they'll effectively not have a chance to make the playoffs. I'm going to go with Miami in this. I just like more what I see in the game and from Miami than I do from Green
Yeah.
Bay.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, man. I've got Miami by 5.5 in my model, and it's another one of these weird ones where the heat map is entirely green for Miami, except for one spot, which is the running back category, which it gives the favor to Green Bay, obviously with Aaron
Yeah.
Jones, AJ Dillon, and I feel good after this past week seeing Tua get back on track.
Hmm.
If he had a third bad game in a row, I would probably be really hesitant picking this game. But he bounced back, and they're like at the bottom of that AFC picture. They're gonna want to win, and so I feel good about it, man. I'm going Miami.
Next up, we have Denver at the Rams. Two
Sweet. What a bunch
teams,
of losers.
two teams that have nothing to play for.
Yes.
Um, what it boiled down to, my model has this as a 10-9 victory by the Broncos.
I've got it a
What
1 point spread the other way, James.
what a fucking awesome game we have going on here.
Yeah. As my son would say, two sucky teams.
Yes. It's in Denver's best interest to lose the game more than the chart or Rams' best interest to lose the game because the Rams, it doesn't matter what the fuck happens to them. They don't have a first round pick anyways.
They're trying to save face with that
Yeah,
first round pick.
yeah, exactly.
But yeah,
I'm gonna go with Denver just because I think the Rams are even worse than the fucking Broncos.
see, dude, now you just bothered me because I was picking the Rams either way by one is what my model has it. But now I'm like even more confident that the Rams are going to win because Denver wants to lose so that their draft pick stays good or better, and the Rams want to win so that their draft pick gets worse for the Lions because it's about saving face. Shit.
Mhm.
I'm taking the Rams. This is such a horrible game.
So here's the thing: the Rams want to win, which is why they're going to lose.
Yeah, and you know what? Do you find it a little weird that there was talk this week about Stafford retiring when all offseason we heard about McVay retiring, Aaron
Mhm.
Donald retiring, everybody and their mom retiring, and then they all came back. And now look at what a disaster it was. Either you're committed to it or you're not, man.
Yeah, no shit.
I mean, you read, I'm sure, probably the Andrew Luck stuff about how committed he was, and just yeah, they got to be all in or all out.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Are we done ragging on these two pathetic teams?
Yeah, it's probably a good choice. Let's go to
Uh,
two more pathetic teams.
yeah, exactly. We got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the
Uh,
Arizona Cardinals. Oh my gosh. What the fuck are they doing on Christmas Day?
James, I do want to just plant the seed here. Question of the week is going to relate to Tampa Bay, so I may only say so much here.
All right. So Tampa Bay is the best team in their division. The division winner in the NFC South might be 8-9 when it's all said and done. Because there's no way Tampa Bay is winning their last three games. And if they do lose another game and New Orleans keeps winning or Atlanta keeps winning, Tampa Bay might even miss the fucking playoffs.
Oh yeah, and Brady, hey man, they're saying he's coming back, and he
San
might
Francisco,
be
I hear.
playing somewhere else, man.
Oh my gosh. I modeled this out, and I don't know how this game is this high scoring. I have
Yeah,
Tampa Bay
yeah,
winning 27-24, and my
okay.
question is how the hell do they score 51 points?
Defense, pick sixes.
Defense. I'm going to go with Tampa Bay in this game, but man, I'm probably not going to watch a minute of football on Christmas Day, and
Oh
I'm not
yeah,
missing shit. I'm not
yeah. You
missing. I'm not missing a damn thing.
just put it on in the background, and you know, yeah.
No,
If you
I
catch,
won't be home, so I won't have a
oh,
choice for it on in the background.
okay, all right. Well, you're in good shape. You're not missing much. Uh, I'm going Tampa Bay as well. I got them by 5 in my model. I think Arizona with Trace McSorley. I'm fine with Tampa Bay by 5. I think they'll find a way. Brady's in desperation mode. Arizona's pretty much effed. So yeah, I go Tampa Bay here, man.
All right. Now we have the Monday night game of
Yes.
the Chargers at the Colts. Another fucking phenomenal team in the mix here. Hey, the Colts still have a chance to make the playoffs. Some
Uh,
fucking how. They still have a shot to make the playoffs. And my model actually has the Colts winning this game.
it's because of that tie, isn't it?
Uh, I think it is. Let me take a look at it real quick. But I think it is because of the tie.
It's gotta be because they've got. If they won out, they'd be at 7, and the Dolphins, if they lost out, are at 8. The Dolphins and Chargers could. Well, the Dolphins and Chargers could lose out and still be at 8 wins. Well, I guess all right. So hang on. It's because of the division. The Colts could end up what knocking
The,
off the
the Colts
Titans
could still win the division.
because they could beat out the Titans if the Titans lose out. There you go. That's what
Yeah,
it is.
that's what it is. I knew it was something. Like it's just
And the Titans could lose out with the way they've been playing lately, man.
exactly.
But the
Um,
Colts won't win out, so it doesn't matter.
my model has the Colts winning this game by 3.
What,
I know. What?
James?
It had the same thing for fucking last week against Minnesota, and that almost came true. So I don't know what the fuck to think.
So are you
on this.
overriding it because you got the Chargers on the
I'm
spreadsheet?
overriding my model. There's no way in fuck the Colts beat the Chargers.
Dude, you're freaking me out, man. You must have been smoking that California cig of weed when you did your model for the Colts here. Um, I got the Chargers by 9, and I know that they're hard to trust. Okay, but the Colts, you can't back them. And the Chargers, they have been getting healthier, and it's what are the odds that Herbert has 2 bad games in a row? I don't know. I gotta go with the Chargers, man. I think the
Hmm.
Chargers are better than the Vikings. And the Vikings pulled off a 33-point comeback last week. So I gotta go Chargers.
Exactly. And then we have next Thursday, the Dallas Cowboys at the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah.
Early modeling, I have Tennessee winning the game. I have a letdown by Dallas after beating Philadelphia and actually giving that would give Philadelphia the division.
Okay.
So I'm with
Yeah,
the
I
Titans.
I got you. I've got Dallas winning it by 3, and that's early. I'll get to polish it next week when we go into it. I think it'll be a bigger spread as we get closer. Um, but we'll see. After this week, maybe Tennessee has me tweak things the other way. It's hard to tell.
Hmm.
Well, that's all she wrote, isn't it,
So
James?
she, yeah,
That's all
sorry for
she
getting a
wrote.
little happy with those terrible games.
It's good to see you getting slap happy, man. Good to see you doing it. One of these days, I'll talk you into having a bourbon with me, but there's no pressure there, obviously. Let's move it
I
on
just
over then.
keep forgetting about it. I have the bottle sitting right over there. I just keep forgetting to bring a glass.
Just go right out of the bottle, man. It's it'll disinfect itself. You don't got to worry about germs. It's whiskey. All right, let's do our question of the week. And so, James, as I mentioned, it's related to Tampa Bay. More so, it's related to Tom Brady. I'm pretty sure when I was watching the game against Cincinnati last week, they were saying that Tom Brady has never had a losing season. With the Buccaneers at 6-8 with 3 games to go, they would need to win 2 and tie 1 or win all 3 for him to go out his career 500 or better every year. 2 of their final games are on the road, and 2 of their final games are against divisional opponents. And so my question is, will Tom Brady finish the season above 500 or break that phenomenal streak, which would just be a disgrace for him? But it's obviously still the GOAT and whatever else. Just you know, I don't like seeing these guys go out like down like that. So I don't know. I think he finds a way to get there because it's Brady. Um, but it doesn't look good the way they've been so far this year. And I don't have much to back that. This is just pure. This is just my feeling. What do you think here, James?
I don't think they are gonna win or be not lose one of the last 3 games. I think it's going to be actually be the final game of the season. They're going to lose at Atlanta and give Atlanta the
Okay.
division.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's tough because Carolina's defense. They're playing Carolina next week,
Hmm.
and I think they'll win Arizona because they're going up against McSorley, third string quarterback. I think it'll just fall in their favor there, even though it's on the road. Carolina next week, even though it's at home for them, I think that's a problem for Brady because Carolina's defense is going to get pressure on him. They have a very weak offensive line, and that's been the story all year. If anybody can put any pressure on him, that offense does almost nothing. And so I think they could lose next week and potentially week 18 against Atlanta.
Sure.
But even if, like, look at it this way, even if they won 2, if they lose one of them, he's finishing under 500.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
I think I don't know. It's tough. I want to say he's going to find a way to do it, but the odds are fucking stacked against him, man.
It's very true.
All right. Well, hey, that was question of the week. Nothing crazy. I'll try to give you maybe something better next week. I don't know.
All
You
right,
know,
sounds good.
our 100 viewers that, are watching the show, I'm sure they got this far and they thought it was easy.
Gridiron Grinder. Hut hut hike.